The void around Earth grew heavy with the shadow of thousands of starships. The Galactic Empire's fleet had arrived, a colossal force sprawling across space, designed to overwhelm any resistance in its path. Their armada was a symbol of imperial might, a demonstration of power intended to cow humanity into submission. The massive vessels, bristling with weaponry, cut through the cold darkness like a blade. The galaxy was watching, and the message was loud and clear. Humanity must surrender. From deep within the Imperial Command Center, a voice echoed across all known communications channels, crisp, authoritative, and dripping with disdain. Humans have been given the chance to join the Galactic Order, to submit their primitive systems to our governance, to abandon their chaotic ways and embrace the peace of the Empire. This is their final warning. Refusal will be met with annihilation. The words were broadcast directly into every city, every military outpost, every ship in orbit around Earth and its colonies. The Galactic Empire believed this ultimatum was the end of the matter. A primitive species, confronted with overwhelming power, would surely bow. That was the pattern everywhere else. This was how the galaxy worked. But humanity was different. Earth's leaders gathered in a fortified command hub, their faces illuminated only by the glow of tactical screens. There were no speeches filled with grand rhetoric, only cold facts, sharp calculations, and an unyielding determination. The council was unanimous. They would not negotiate. They would not surrender. The scars of history were raw and fresh in their mind. Centuries of broken treaties, betrayals, and wars had taught humanity one lesson clearly: trust was a luxury they could not afford. The Galactic Empire had always viewed them as insignificant, a backwater species that could be crushed like insects if they stepped out of line. That would not happen. Not this time. "We've survived worse," one leader said simply. "We don't bow. We don't beg. We fight." The preparations began instantly. Earth's orbital defense grids powered up, satellites recalibrated for maximum coverage, and military fleets readied for deployment. But this was not just a fight for survival. It was a declaration that humanity would never be ruled, never be subdued. The Empire's ships struck first, launching precision attacks aimed to cripple Earth's defenses quickly. They believed overwhelming firepower would break human resistance before it could fully organize. But the humans responded with unpredictability and tenacity. They fought with tactics that were unfamiliar to the Empire: guerrilla strikes, hit-and-run assaults, and coordinated ambushes from hidden orbital platforms. Imperial commanders struggled to adapt. Every time they thought they had the upper hand, humans found new ways to disrupt their plans. Using salvage technology and ingenious modifications, humans turned their vulnerability into strength. They moved swiftly, striking enemy supply lines and forcing the Empire's fleet into defensive maneuvers. The shock rippled through the Empire's ranks. How could a species deemed primitive and chaotic fight with such coordination, such ruthless precision? The arrogance of the Empire began to erode. Within the imperial halls of power, divisions grew. Some generals called for a reconsideration, arguing that negotiation might prevent a costly war. Others demanded total destruction, convinced that any compromise was a sign of weakness. The Empire, so used to obedience and control, found itself uncertain, rattled by an enemy that refused to submit. Despite internal turmoil, the humans' response was unwavering. Their message was clear and unambiguous. "We do not negotiate with those who seek to enslave us. Prepare for war." This declaration sent shockwaves across the galaxy. Allies of the Empire questioned the wisdom of underestimating humanity. Neutral systems watched with growing apprehension. The humans were no longer a curiosity, they were a threat. Deep beneath Earth's surface, scientists and strategists worked in secrecy. What the Empire did not know was that humanity was preparing something unprecedented. A weapon, a strategy, born not from arrogance but necessity. This was their ace in the hole, a last-ditch effort to protect their home and rewrite the galaxy's expectations. The Empire sensed the shift but could not identify its source. Their confidence faltered as reports came in of unexpected losses and increasingly bold human attack. The humans were not just fighting to survive, they were fighting to define their place in the universe. A final broadcast from Earth reverberated through the void. The voice was calm but resolute. "We refuse to negotiate. We will fight until the last breath. The galaxy has been warned." This was more than a message, it was a challenge. The Empire had misjudged humanity's spirit, their will to endure, and their capacity for resistance. The humans were awakening from the shadows of their supposed insignificance, rising as a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy held its breath as the war drums echoed in the cold expanse. The Empire faced a new reality, one where humanity was no longer a subject to be subdued but a storm to be weathered. And the storm was just beginning. The Empire's warships advanced, seeking to crush the rebellious humans swiftly. But Earth's defenders had anticipated their move. The orbital defenses, though outmatched in sheer firepower, exploited the terrain of space and debris with deadly precision. Humans struck from unexpected angles, disabling enemy vessels with surgical strikes before vanishing into asteroid fields or cloaked positions. Imperial soldiers, trained to face disciplined armies and known foes, found themselves confronting enemies who fought with desperation and cunning. The humans' willingness to sacrifice everything to protect their world unsettled the Empire's commanders. Their psychological armor cracked as losses mounted. Amid the battle reports, the Empire's political leaders convened behind closed doors. Factions clashed openly, some viewing humans as an insufferable plague to be eradicated, others recognizing that underestimating them was a grave error. The decision was taken to escalate the conflict, but uncertainty lingered. What were humans capable of that they had not yet revealed? On Earth, the response was not just military. Civilians were mobilized in factories, research centers, and logistical hubs. Every hand was put to work, driven by a collective resolve to survive and defend the home they love. The Empire's threat had unified a species often divided by politics and culture. In communications, the human voice grew louder, defiant, and unbowed. Messages broadcast to the galaxy declared that humanity would no longer be silent or submissive. "We are not your subjects. We do not fear war. We fight because we must." This raw honesty sent ripples of unease through Imperial allies and enemies alike. The humans were unpredictable, fierce, and united in ways the Empire had never encountered. The Empire scrambled to adjust its tactics, but the humans always seemed one step ahead. Intelligence gathered from battles suggested a new technology, a new weapon being developed in secrecy. The Empire's scientists raced to uncover it, but their efforts were thwarted by human counterintelligence and relentless resistance. The Imperial commanders faced an unprecedented dilemma. Their vast resources were being bled by a species they had dismissed. The Galactic Empire was reeling. The confidence of conquest had been shattered. Earth's defenses had withstood the initial onslaught, and humanity's refusal to negotiate sent ripples of disbelief through Imperial ranks. The galaxy, long accustomed to bowing under the Empire's weight, was witnessing a defiance it had never encountered. The humans were no longer a minor nuisance, they were a rising storm. Imperial High Command convened, urgency palpable in every word. The fleet's commanders demanded immediate escalation. Total war, no holds barred. The plan was brutal in its simplicity: crush humanity's resistance before it could consolidate power or unleash the mysterious weapon whispered about in intelligence reports. Yet the humans were not idle. Behind their determined faces, brilliant minds orchestrated a defense that evolved daily. Strategies grew bolder. Innovation surged. Every setback was met with a new tactic, every loss with unyielding resolve. Earth was not just fighting for survival, it was transforming into a war machine fueled by sheer will. The first sign of humanity's growing strength was the appearance of stealth fighters armed with technology the Empire had not predicted. These ships struck with speed and precision, disappearing before retaliation could be mounted. They attacked supply lines, communications hubs, and even the Empire's most heavily guarded vessels. The losses were mounting, and the Empire's confidence dwindled. Humans were adapting faster than the Empire could anticipate. The mysteries of their technology, partially scavenged and partially homegrown, confused Imperial scientists. How could a species dismissed as backward produce weapons capable of penetrating the Empire's defenses? The answer lay in something deeper: human ingenuity, relentless experimentation, and a refusal to be outmatched. The psychological impact on the Empire was severe. Where once arrogance ruled, doubt now seeped into conversations. The commanders' voices, once confident and commanding, betrayed anxiety. Internal memos leaked, revealing deep concerns over humanity's unpredictability and the risk of prolonged conflict. As the Empire scrambled to contain the growing threat, the humans issued their next message. It was broadcast across all Imperial channels, clear and uncompromising. You threatened our home. You sought to subjugate us. We refused. You chose war. Prepare for the consequences. This was no longer a warning. It was a promise. Earth's surface had changed as well. Military installations expanded into vast underground complexes. Civilians volunteered en masse to aid the war effort. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, driven by a unified goal. The human spirit, once dismissed as fragile, proved unbreakable. The Empire's fleets pushed harder. They launched waves of assaults aimed at crushing human resistance before it could reach full strength. But every advance was met with fierce opposition. The humans used their knowledge of their own planet and orbital space to stage ambushes. Their tactics were unpredictable and brutal, leaving Imperial ships crippled and commanders baffled. In one key battle, the humans deployed a new weapon, a plasma surge cannon capable of disabling multiple capital ships simultaneously. The attack devastated a portion of the Imperial fleet, forcing a retreat. This victory was broadcast widely, bolstering morale on Earth and sowing fear in Imperial territories. The Empire reacted by increasing recruitment and conscripting new troops from distant star systems. But these soldiers, unfamiliar with the humans' tactics and terrain, were often overwhelmed. Desertions increased, and whispers of rebellion against Imperial command spread. The humans capitalized on this unrest. Propaganda campaigns targeted Imperial soldiers, reminding them of their shared suffering under Empire rule and the futility of fighting a determined species defending its home. This psychological warfare fractured Imperial cohesion further. Meanwhile, Earth's leaders prepared for the inevitable next phase: direct confrontation. The mysterious weapon, known only as Project Dawn, was nearing completion. Its purpose was clear: to shift the balance decisively. Rumors circulated that it was a technology capable of severing the Empire's command networks, rendering their fleet blind and vulnerable. Imperial intelligence intensified efforts to uncover Project Dawn's secret. Spies infiltrated human systems, but every attempt was met with fierce countermeasures. Human counterintelligence excelled, turning many Imperial agents into double agents or neutralizing them before damage could be done. With the Empire's resources stretched thin and morale faltering, their desperation grew. The Emperor himself issued a decree: no mercy for Earth, no concessions, total annihilation if necessary. The fleets mobilized for a decisive strike, aiming to crush humanity's resolve once and for all. But the humans were ready. When the Imperial fleet arrived in orbit over Earth for the largest assault yet, they found their sensors crippled. Communications were garbled, and coordination broke down. Project Dawn was operational. The Empire's ships drifted like blind giants, unable to target or support each other effectively. Human forces struck with brutal efficiency. Coordinated attacks crippled the fleet's largest warship. The battle turned into a rout. The Empire lost more ships in a single engagement than it had in months. The cost was staggering. This victory was more than military, it was symbolic. The galaxy watched as humanity shattered the Empire's myth of invincibility. The humans' refusal to negotiate was no longer stubbornness, it was a declaration that they would never be conquered. Yet, victory came at a price. Earth's defenses were heavily damaged and casualties were high. But the people's resolve only hardened. The world united as one. The Empire, humiliated and battered, faced an uncertain future. Their once mighty armada was fractured, their command structure shaken. The question that echoed in imperial halls was no longer if humanity would fall, but how long the war would last and at what cost. Amid the ruins of battle, Earth's leaders made one thing clear: this was just the beginning. Humanity had sent its warning across the galaxy. No negotiations, no surrender. The Empire had been shocked, but the humans would continue to fight, to innovate, to survive. The war was far from over. The Empire's shock had turned to fury, but humanity's defiance had become legend. This section intensifies the conflict, showing humanity's tactical and technological breakthroughs, the Empire's desperation, psychological warfare, and the turning point battle with Project Dawn. The HFY theme is strong throughout: human resilience, ingenuity, and unbreakable spirit challenging a supposedly invincible empire. The Galactic Empire's fury was palpable after the crushing defeat of its fleet near Earth. The shockwave of their loss reverberated through the Imperial core, shaking the very foundations of their authority. They had never faced a species that would reject negotiation, that would defy their overwhelming power and stand firm against annihilation. But humanity had done exactly that, refused every demand, countered every strike, and survived what should have been an impossible war. Now, the Empire prepared for its most ruthless campaign yet, determined to crush Earth and extinguish the human spark before it could ignite rebellion elsewhere. They poured resources into new superweapons, vessels equipped with technology designed to overwhelm any defense. Every ship that could fly was dispatched to the front. The message was clear: total war until submission or extinction. But humanity was no longer simply defending. They had learned, adapted, and innovated on a scale the Empire had never anticipated. New weapons systems, combining electromagnetic pulse technology with hyper-advanced AI targeting, disrupted Imperial fleets before they could even launch attack. Human commanders demonstrated an uncanny ability to predict Imperial maneuvers, exploiting weaknesses with surgical precision. A crucial turning point came when humanity took the fight directly to Imperial space. Using a network of hidden jump points and rapid strike ships, they launched coordinated raids on supply depots, shipyards, and communication hubs far from Earth's orbit. These attacks fractured the Empire's supply chains, forcing them to fight on multiple fronts and stretching their forces thin. The Empire's leaders panicked as rebel cells within their own colonies began to rise, inspired by humanity's example. Messages from Earth reached oppressed populations, spreading hope and resolve. The Imperial propaganda machine faltered against this rising tide of dissent. The Emperor, in a rare public address, declared humanity a scourge to be eradicated and promised the swiftest retribution. But every attempt to mass fleets was met with fierce resistance. The human strategy of hit-and-run raids, combined with unmatched battlefield coordination, kept Imperial forces off balance. On Earth, Project Dawn had evolved into Project Phoenix, a comprehensive initiative combining defense, offense, and diplomacy with allied alien species who shared humanity's desire for freedom. This coalition brought new technologies, new fighters, and new strategies to the war. The humans' refusal to negotiate was no longer stubbornness, it was a declaration of a new galactic order. They would not submit, nor would they seek mercy. They would fight for their survival and their place among the stars. With the Empire weakened and fractured, humanity's counteroffensive intensified. Coordinated strikes targeted the heart of Imperial power, command centers, fleet headquarters, and critical infrastructure. These attacks, swift and brutal, dismantled the Empire's ability to wage war on a grand scale. In the midst of this chaos, a new message emerged from Earth, one broadcast across the galaxy. It was not a demand or threat, but a warning. Humanity would defend itself and its allies at all costs. Any attempt to enslave, conquer, or destroy would be met with overwhelming force. The Galactic Empire, once the galaxy's supreme authority, was forced to retreat, rethink, and rebuild. Its shock at humanity's refusal to negotiate had become a defining moment, one that reshaped power dynamics and heralded an era where humans were no longer prey, but predators in their own right. The war was far from over, but the balance had shifted. Humanity had sent a clear message to the galaxy. They were here to stay, they would not bow, and they would fight until the very end. The Empire's greatest warning had been ignored. The humans refused to negotiate, and in that refusal lay the galaxy's new future.